Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna talk about deadweight loss a little bit first, and then I'm going to go over trade. But the beauty about deadweight loss, the beauty about trade is we're taking everything we've learned and just building a little bit on it. Deadweight loss shouldn't have been too difficult because honestly, it was the same stuff we did. It's just, hey, government got involved and here's what happened. Okay? So let's just kind of preview, let's go over deadweight loss again. Let's say there is no tax. So pre-tax, what do we got for consumer surplus? A. Because how do we always determine consumer surplus? Below demand, above price, below demand, above price, below demand, above price, below demand, above price.
I'm sorry. Below demand, above price, below.
Below demand, above price.
Below demand, above price.
Above price, below demand.
You're the worst.
Oh. Above, below price, above demand.
Below demand, above price.
Below
demand, above price. Below demand, above price. And how do we get to producer surplusity? We take a B pass. Take a bus pass. Below price, above supply. So therefore, it's B. And total surplus?
All of the
A plus
above.
B. You have to add them. It cannot be multiplied. If you multiply it, it's wrong. It has to be added. And it's going to be really annoying because sometimes it's going to be like A plus B plus C. Okay? But it can never be multiplied. All right. Now let's assume that the government steps in and it's like, you know what? Tax time. What are we selling? What's this the market of?
Red Bull.
Red Bull. Energy drinks. Let's do that. And you know what? That's actually a really good one because a lot of time they put excise taxes on things they don't want you to have, the government. Alcohol, tobacco. They did it with soda. I definitely can see them doing it with energy drinks. I wouldn't be surprised if places do. Okay? So they put the tax on there, and remember, the tax is like a wedge. Okay? Let me get a smaller ruler. That must be. So think of that as, I gotta do this in purple so the folks back home can see it. I sound like Barack Obama calling everybody folks. Okay. So here's the wedge, okay, and then what happens here? What's this?
The price of the manners.
The price, that's a new price, and this is a new price. These are both new prices. Now, let's use common sense, and then let's use like super common sense, okay? If there's a tax, would the producer get less money or would they be making more? Less. So that's the price the seller gets. You know how else is the super duper common sense? It's the one on the supply line.
Super duper common sense.
All right, let's use common sense. If there's a tax, what do we do as consumers? We usually have to what?
Pay more.
Pay more. So that's going to be the buyer one, the higher one. But super duper common sense, it's the one on the demand curve. Okay? So let's use this. A, B, C, D, E, and F. Hi, hang on just one second. And I'm recording again. Okay. So now there's a tax. Boo-hoo. Post-tax. Now we have to figure out several things. What is our new consumer surplus? Remember, below demand, above price. It's the same thing here. Below demand, above price. You're like, hold up, Thorsten, there's 3 prices. But which price is it?
Which price is right?
The price they pay, which is a great show. Correct? All right. What about producer surplus? How do we get to producer surplusity? We take a
B pass.
B pass, so what that means, BP, below price, AS, above supply. What price?
Yeah.
The supplier's price. Yeah, it's their price, so it's going to be F. Now, let's talk about taxes. Where are the taxes coming from? Well, remember, this is the new quantity taxed. This is the new quantity that's being sold. And I heard you guys say it, B plus D. Correct. Because, think about this. This is the tax. This is the price before the tax. Let's say this was $5 and the tax is a $2 tax. So this is this is $6 and this is $4, correct? And this is the tax right here. That's the tax. So it's that tax times how many is sold. They get to get tax revenues. Yes?
Will the suppliers always, will the tax always be equal?
No, nope. And I'll show you that in just one second.
Okay.
Let me do this and then I'll show you how it can be unequal. Okay? And it all has to do with elasticity.
Ooh.
Okay? So, what is the total surplus? A plus B plus D plus F. Because this is a surplus. Everybody's like happy about something. They're at least happy with A, they're at least happy with F, and who's happy with B and D? The government. Somebody's happy. And that's what it is. It's our well-being. The government's like, yay, money! And that's their money. So they get surplus too out of that. So this is where we get dead weight loss. Now, dead weight loss is the wedge. So it's always going to be right there, C plus E. So think about this. Before the government came around with their stinky taxes, okay, we were happy right here. We bought this many at that price. Let's say this is 100 and this is 75, okay? Just to put some numbers on it makes our lives easier sometimes. When the government steps in and they're like, $2 tax per Red Bull or energy drink, we're not buying as many. So you need to think that there were 100 cans of energy drink, and now only 75 exist because of this tax. These disappeared. So there could have been 25 more energy drinks on the market that magically disappeared because the government came in with their tax. It's gone. And that's known as dead weight loss. Because is this efficient? Is this right here efficient? These points, that. No, what's efficient? This is known, when we have market equilibrium, when quantity supplied equals quantity demanded without government involvement, that's called allocative efficiency. Where are we at allocative efficiency? Quantity is what? Price. Okay, so the new quantity is 75 and the new price is, well, for them it's 6, for them it's 4. Is that allocative efficiency? It sure isn't. And because of that, we have this right here, which is known as dead weight loss. Because we had this, we lost it. Because government.
They didn't even take it.
It's just think about it, it's gone.
It's like they just threw it away.
Yeah, it's almost like it. Yeah, think about it like that. Assume that they had like 100 on the shelves and then the government stepped in and had this tax and they're like, nope, it's gone, they throw it away. Think about it like that. That's dead weight loss. It's just gone. It just disappears. And it's wasteful. If something has dead weight, it's holding you back. It's wasteful. It's not efficient. Correct? And that's what that means. Does this help make sense? So what I want you to do now that I've put the answers online for you, you can go back and double check those. And what we can do is at the end of class, after I teach you about international trade, we can go back and go over those if you'd like me to as well. But I do want to get over international trade because that's super important. But it's actually really easy. It's real simple. Yes?
So what this is saying is the government by definition is inefficient whenever it levies a tax?
Depends. Kind of need defense, don't we?
A little bit.
Okay. So, how can it be different? Depending on elasticity. Now, if something is inelastic, is it straight up and down or sideways? It's more up and down. Okay, so let's say that demand is inelastic and supply is elastic. Okay? And all of a sudden there's a tax. Price, seller, price, buyer, quantity tax. So there we go. So do you see how that's a little bit different? They are taking, the buyer's paying more of the tax. Okay? then the seller has to. Why? Because we still have to buy it no matter what is taxed. Medicine, oh, fine. Do you see what I mean? Or gas. Gas would be the best example of this. We have to buy more. We have to. If you have a car, you have to buy it. So our demand doesn't really change, so we're going to take the brunt of that tax. Does that help make sense? Okay.
Can I take a picture?
Please. I shall get out of the way, and then we'll talk about tax, international trade. International trade is actually really easy. And going once, going twice on this, because I'm going to erase this and do it all over again with international trade. Okay? All right. So basically, we're going to look at how a country determines what to import and export. We know what an import is, right? Import, in, export, out, import, export. And think about that, because sometimes it's the weird things that help us remember, right? Okay, so we're going to see when we have to decide how to import and when to import and export, how it benefits us, and this is where we get consumer surplus and producer surplus and deadweight loss and stuff like that. All right, so we talked about trade and how it's good for everybody. I'm skipping through that. All right, so let's look at, oh, I forgot I have my clicker. Where are you? Yay. Okay. So let's say that the price W stands for the world price of a good, the price that prevails in world markets. Let's say we have a domestic price without trade. Oh man, and I'm just gonna have to do this. Oh, that's so silly, because I want straight lines, but I'm gonna do it fast, so you guys are gonna have to deal. Okay, so we're gonna look at a domestic. What are we selling? Let's do t-shirts. Do you guys remember the tariff of abominations?
No.
No?
No, I haven't learned about tariffs until this year.
In APECON, you didn't learn about the tariff of abominations? That practically was causing the Civil War.
It doesn't even sound familiar.
Oh, you guys make me so sad.
Sorry.
All right, let me give you a little strategy. And seriously, whenever I taught about the tariff of abominations in APUSH, this is what I always did. All right. This is, by the way, we're going to do t-shirts, because I always did t-shirts. Let's say that the domestic price of a t-shirt was $20, $20, and we're selling $500. We're just going to say that. Let's say that England could sell us t-shirts for $10. What are we going to do? Buy English shirts. Absolutely, of course we will. But what if the government put a tariff on all English shirts, that for every English shirt that was sold, they had to pay a $15 tariff?
We're going to buy domestic.
We're going to buy domestically. And that was the tariff of abominations. The South, the northern manufacturers that were making the t-shirts, do you know what I'm saying? They were mad because everybody was buying from England because it was cheaper over there, because they had manufacturing longer so they could make it cheaper. So the Congress at the time were like, well, we'll just pass this tariff to protect northern factories. Well, guess who gets mad?
Southern plantation.
Because they're providing the cotton for England to make the cheap t-shirts. And then the consumers are mad because they're paying higher prices for the shirts. Okay? So keep that scenario in mind. You are in that situation, okay? So let's assume that the world price is that $10 for English t-shirts. That's like what everybody's paying, okay? So if the world price is higher than the domestic price, we could flip it. Let's say the world price is $30 and the domestic price is $10. What are we doing? You're going to export or import? You own a t-shirt company. At home, you're charging $10. Around the world, you could sell them for $20. What are you doing? Exporting. Get them out of America. Buy my stuff. Yes? But let's say the world price we can produce at $20 and the world price is $10. What are we consumers going to want to do? Done by the cheap stuff, right? Import. Why do you think China makes so much money? Oh, we're gonna talk about that in macro too.
Make really cheap things.
They do. And typically when they make really cheap things, what do people do? Give China lots of what? Money for the cheap things. And when there's more and more money, well, this is one of our principles.
They can build more and more cheap things.
No, rephrase. Take one step back. When there's lots of money in circulation, what happens? When there's lots of money in circulation, what do we call that? Inflation, and prices go up. So prices should be high in China, but they keep lying and saying prices are cheap and like are totally screwing everybody in the world.
Oh,
It's very lovely. Definitely have this somewhere written down so that you remember it. Because this is very important. When the domestic price is lower than the world price, we're getting rid of those shirts. Think about it. And all you gotta do, literally, if you're like, oh, I can't remember that, just do this. I own the t-shirt company, me, USA, world. Mine are $10. I can sell them on the world for $20. Export. Yes? USA, world. They're $20 in the USA. I can buy them here from China for $10. Bring me the cheap shirts, please. Please. I don't want to save me some money. This is an English class, so I don't have to talk like that. Correct? This is math. This is America. This is math. This is econ. It's good stuff.
Easy.
It's very good stuff. All right, so we're gonna assume this. We're gonna assume we have a small economy. We're a price taker. Our price has no effect on the world. Now that is just a hoot and a holler because our prices pretty much run the world, besides China. But we're gonna assume, for the sake of ease, for the sake of economics 101, that our prices have no effect on the world. The world price is the world price. Our price is our price. Got it? So all other things equal, that's all we're assuming. Like I said, it's not always true, but we're going to assume that just because it makes life easier. So we're also going to assume that no seller would accept a price less than the world market if they could sell it for that price, and no would pay more for that. No one's going to be like, you know what, USA, I'm going to buy American. We're going to assume that everyone's buying cheap and everyone's selling for more. I ain't selling to people outside this country. I'm American. I don't sell to people from other countries. I don't know why I had to have a southern accent like that. I just felt like it was right. We're assuming, all the time. Because you know people who are like, I'm only buying American. I don't care how cheap they are. Correct? Yes? Come on. You might be one and that's okay. That's your prerogative. But we're going to assume that everybody either wants to make lots of money or is super duper cheap. Okay? Wants high producer and high consumer surplus. Oh, we're going to use soybeans. You know who the number one buyer of soybeans is in the world is, right?
China?
Yeah. You know who the number one seller is?
USA.
Right.
Got a lot of land.
You knew that this meant USA, correct? Okay, just making sure. Okay, so let's say without trade, so don't look at this right now. This is something for later. Okay, we're going to look solely on here because it's going to be a lot easier. So let's say without trade, the world price, or the domestic price, domestic meaning American and home country, is $4 and the quantity is 500. Let's say the world price is $6. You're a farmer. You could sell soybeans in America for $6, or you could sell them across the world, you could sell soybeans in America for $4 domestically, or you could sell them across the world for $6. Are you keeping them in America, or are you getting rid of them? Export. Okay? So here's what happens. Under free trade, domestically, we ain't buying the soybeans. Why? High price. Yeah. That's, again, just common sense. Of course we're not. There's the math of it, but common sense. And you are a farmer. Remember, you said you're exporting. Are you the only farmer who's going to think that way? No way. We're assuming all farmers think that way. So the domestic producers increase the supply. Now we have a disequilibrium right there. Okay? But in this case, this is known as something. Those are the exports. We're not buying as many, but they're selling way more. But they can sell it way more at this price because people around the world are going to pay that price. So that's the exports. Remember when I said trade makes everyone better off? In this case, we're a little sadder, but there's still people buying from America, American soybeans. But the rest of the world is coming. We don't need to worry about like being disequilibrium because those exports are being sold. Okay? Now, tell me here. Without trade, remember, without trade, there's no red line. That is consumer surplus, below demand, above price. What is producer surplus? How do we get to producer surplus city? We take B pass. So BP below price, above supply. C. So what's total surplus? A. Do we say A, B, C, or do we have to say A plus B plus C?
A plus B plus C.
Yeah, really annoying, I know. Okay, now, domestically, with trade, let's make predictions before I show it to you. Domestically, domestically with trade, what is consumer surplus? A, below demand, above price. It's always that same saying, kids. Always remember when they ask you consumer surplus, below demand, above price, below demand, above price. And consumer surplus, how do we get to, or producer surplus, how do we get to producer surplus city? B pass.
Below price, above supply.
So therefore, what is producer surplus with trade?
The sum of C,
A plus B plus B.
Not A.
Oh no, C plus B plus D.
Yes. And then what is total surplus with trade?
The sum of A, B, C, and D.
Yes. And remember how I said trade makes everyone better off? Look at the total surplus. Trade makes everyone better off. Because remember, our surpluses are well-being. Okay? And guess what, guys? When producers are happy, we're happy too. Even if we're not the ones producing it, we're happy because it will trickle down to, sorry to use that term, but it will affect us because if they can produce more, prices tend to go down with that. Okay? All right. So let's try this. I want you guys to figure this out. So without trade, price is, the domestic price is $3,000 for plasma TVs, quantity is 400. In the world market, the price is $1,500. Under free trade, how many TVs will be imported and exported? So I'm going to pause the video, let you guys work it out, and then I'll go over the answers. Oh, hang on a second. You also will need to identify the consumer surplus, producer surplus, and total surplus without trade and with trade. Okay, so first question is, they asked you, are we importing or exporting? Mm-hmm. When we see that TVs are $3,000 in America, but TVs from other country are $1,500, we're going to import. And how do we figure out how much to import? Because what's this number represent? What's this 600 represent?
How much the buyers will purchase.
How much domestic buyers want to purchase. And what does this number represent? How much domestic suppliers will actually supply at that point. So therefore, we need to import how many TVs? 400. Yep. Under free trade, we'd want 600 at that price, but domestic suppliers would only supply 200. Therefore, we'd need to import 400 televisions. All right. Questions about that one? Okay. Now let's look at this. You did the math, didn't you? That's okay. Did you figure out like 600,000, 600,000, 1.2 million? That's fine. That's fine. But let's do it the simpler way, okay? So let's do this together and then we'll go over the answers there, okay? They did it like this. Let's do this. Okay. What before tax, with no trade, what is producer or consumer surplus? A. What is producer surplus before trade?
B plus C.
B plus C, so therefore total surplus with no trade.
Plus B plus C.
Uh-huh. All right, let's look at it with trade. With trade, what is consumer surplus?
A plus B plus D.
Mm-hmm. And what is producer surplus?
C.
Uh-huh. So what's total?
Sum of A, B, C, and D.
Now looking at your numbers, if you guys did that correctly, you know what I mean, your numbers are going to be right. If that's how you did your numbers, your math. Again, we benefit from trade, okay? So without trade, consumer surplus A, producer B plus C, A plus B plus C. With trade, A plus B plus D, producer surplus is C, then all four of them together, okay? So this is something, if you guys want to take a picture of this, I would. This is how you can understand what happens when the domestic price is lower than the world price. We're going to export because we can make more money selling them across the world. We as consumers don't like it, but producers like it, and total, it helps the country. When domestic prices are more expensive than the world, we're going to get the cheap stuff from outside the country. Consumers are happy, producers are not because they're losing business, but overall surplus does rise. So again, everybody, trade makes everybody better off, but there are some winners and losers to it. So what if there's a tariff? Let's go to the tariffs again. See, they use shirts too. By the way, for the record, I totally used shirts before they did. I did it before school. So let's assume the world price is $20 and the government decides to put a tariff on a t-shirt for $10. And what's another name for a tariff? It's a tax. Tariffs are taxes. It's just tariffs are taxes on imports. It's just another tax. So we would pay more. So domestic producers can charge $30 for their shirts because it would be the same. So in general, the price facing domestic buyers and sellers is going to equal the world price plus the tariff. So let's assume the world price is 20, but again, we're going to put a tariff on it in just a second. So if the world price is 20, it's obviously lower than the domestic price. So what are we going to want to do with trade? If this is the domestic price, say it's like 50, okay? And we can buy t-shirts across the world for $20. What do we want to do as consumers? Buy more, and sellers want to sell less domestically. So we would need to import how many? 55. Yep, just the difference, okay? But then the government's like, I want to encourage people to buy American, just like I was telling you about the tariff of abominations. They did the same thing. We want people to buy American products. So they put a tariff, $10 per shirt. So now, with the tariff, the prices rise, and what do we do as domestic consumers? Our demand, what? Decreases, the quantity demanded. And as domestic producers, when they see they can sell t-shirts for $30, what are they going to do? You make t-shirts. You were having to compete with the $20 t-shirts. Now because of this tariff, you can actually sell t-shirts for $30. What are you going to do? Make more t-shirts or not?
Make more.
Why not? I would. If I own a t-shirt business and I was having to compete with like international shirts for $20, but with that tariff, now I can charge $30 and be equally competitive, I'm making more shirts. Why not? I can make an extra $10 a shirt. But there's still not equilibrium. So what are we going to do? It's still lower than what it would be domestically if we didn't trade. So what would we do as buyers? When prices are at $30 because of this tariff, there's 70 of us that want shirts and only 40 domestic producers of shirts. We still got to import. And how many would we import at this point? 30. So we're importing less. We're buying more American. But it is less. Okay, so how does that affect the whole producer, consumer, surplus, all that kind of stuff? So this is a combo of what we learned with deadweight loss and what we just learned with trade. Okay? Because remember, deadweight loss happens because there's some type of disturbance to the market. And what's the disturbance to the market in this situation? What's that called? Tariff. Okay. I know it's hard for us to hear when, or we're just not saying the right words and I'm assuming you are. I don't know. Am I right? Is that no? So before we even go over this, with no tariff, what would be consumer surplus? One person say it because there's a lot of letters you have to say.
The sum of A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Yes. All right. Now anybody can shout this out. Before the tariff, what was the domestic producer surplus?
G.
G. G, that's the right answer. And then all those would make, if you added up all those, that would be total surplus, okay? There you go. Congratulations, you got it. Okay. Now that the tariff has happened, let's do this. I'm gonna draw this up here. I'm just gonna do world price and then tariff. Price, tariff, A. What are we doing this at? B. There we go. Like, what am I screwing up when I see it? Okay. Because we're gonna cross these off when we're done with it. Okay. So with the tariff, what is consumer surplus? A plus B. Okay. Got those out of the way. With the tariff, what is producer surplus?
C plus G.
C plus G. What are D, E, and F? All right, let's do E. That one's the easiest. What's
Revenue.
E?
That's tariff.
Tariff revenue. Yep. That's the tax revenue. What are D and F?
Deadweight loss.
Deadweight loss. You know how you know?
The market is inefficient.
Two ways. Number one, the deadweight loss is different in each situation, but they're both deadweight loss. This deadweight loss is happening because, let's say this was 80, 70, 40, 25, okay? We were buying 80, but the government said tariff, and now we're only buying 70. Those 10 t-shirts disappeared, okay? Now, we do see this deadweight loss. Now, wait a second, we're gaining. But we're gaining expensive stuff that is anti what we want. Do you see what I'm saying? We are gaining, but not the desired product we want. Does that make sense? So this 15 takes away from the 15 cheap shirts we wanted. And that's why that's deadweight loss. So then what is total surplus?
Sum of A, B, C, and G.
A, B, C, G,
And E.
and E. And E. See, you guys are getting this, man. And then guess what? I'm going to just have you practice. See, we figured it out. Tax revenue. There it is. Deadweight loss. Do you guys have questions about this? Okay, I am gonna tell you guys one thing right now. Sometimes, just like in geometry, I'm sure you've seen this before, sometimes it might be labeled like this, sometimes it might be labeled like A, B, C, and you're gonna have to tell me it's like triangle ABC. Do you see what I'm saying, like where the points are labeled? So just be careful that 99% of the time it's gonna be labeled like this, or you just like that. But every now and then you might get a question where it's like, it's this triangle, and you just label it like that. Does that make sense? You guys have done that before in math, so that shouldn't be too hard. Okay, so I'm done for the day with that. Would you guys like me to go over the answers?